Hey folks, got something else I want to talk about. This is a serious subject to me, and I'm not joking. I know it's hard to tell sometimes, but there's this fellow on YouTube who I'd never heard of until 3 days ago. I can't remember his name. His channel name is Sargon of Akkad or something like that. AKKOD. He's from the UK, and in doing very little research, looking back through a few of his videos, reading his about page and stuff like that, he presents himself as a truth seeker, someone that does his own research, that likes to find out the truth behind things, from various things, from gaming to history, literature, ideology, or anti-ideology as he calls it, all these different things. He's just a guy that thinks, thinks for himself, as far as I can tell. Got about 870,000 followers or something like that. He makes his living on YouTube. Well, he's got a Patreon page, or had a Patreon page, that was the source of his income. Good for him. Patreon took his page down, just like that. No explanation. You violated our terms of service. Naturally, he wanted to know why. So he started sending them emails. They ignored him. He sent more. He finally got someone to respond from their, I believe it's their safety and security team or something like that. And you violated our terms of service. Basically all they said. So he tried further. And he finally got them to say that his the reason they deleted him was because 10 months ago he was on another person's live stream doing an interview of sorts, and he was railing about Nazis, his distaste for them, his hate of them, his dislike, his disagreement, fully against everything they stood for. And in the course of this interview, he used a word that is seen by most as a racist word in and of itself. Doesn't matter what context you use it in. He used it against the very people that use it for their own promotion and their own benefit and their own ideology. He used it against them. And someone decided they didn't like this guy and went back through the history of the internet and found everything that the guy ever said or did and pulled that one thing out and sent a link to it to Patreon. Now this live stream was on YouTube. It was not on Patreon. It was not on his page. He didn't promote it on his page. He didn't include it on Patreon. Had nothing to do with Patreon. He didn't use Patreon in order to gain support for the other page. I mean, it had absolutely nothing to do with Patreon. Still, they saw it as a violation of their terms of service. Now, if you're interested in this, because it is extremely interesting and an extremely dangerous precedent in my opinion, I'm going to post the link to about 4 different videos down here where people talk about this. 2 of them are Dave Rubin and Jordan Peterson, and 3 of them are the guy himself. Maybe 3 videos total. Anyway, you'll see them. They explain it far better than I could, and in much more detail. But in one of the videos, he goes on to say, Patreon's terms of services are clear, absolute, black and white, right there. These terms of services, I'm paraphrasing, serve as a guideline for content on Patreon. The CEO or president or whoever of Patreon has been heard in interviews as to say, we don't care what you say on Twitter. It's Patreon that we're concerned about. Well, in the course of these emails back and forth, the Patreon support team, the safety and security guys, made it very clear to him and very clear to anyone who reads it, your brand violated our terms of service. What they're saying is, anything that you do or say anywhere on the internet, anywhere that we can identify it, if that violates our terms of service, whether or not it's on our platform or not, you can't use our service. I think this is a very dangerous precedent because they're driven by the mob. They're driven by the mob that's trying to get people silenced. And this guy identifies himself as a liberal. He's not some alt-right or right-winger or Republican or what. He's from the UK. Yet he offended somebody and he has to go. You got to be gone, buddy. Your career's over. Period. So he went and found a secondary source of, there's another service out there, I forget the name of it, Star or something, I don't remember, that does the same thing that Patreon does, only without an ideological slant, apparently. He started using them. They've already been petitioned by this mob. Oh, I got a mustache here that's tickling my nose. They've been petitioned by this mob to get rid of him and others like him. And the people they view as alt-right, anti-Semitic, racist, sexist, homophobic, you name it, are people like Ben Shapiro, who is as Jewish can be, probably the absolute antithesis of an anti-Semite. Dave Rubin, who identified as a liberal, he's homosexual, he's a classic liberal, he calls himself now. Jordan Peterson, who despises the alt-right and the alt-left and the alt-anything. I can't name all the people. But anyway, they're all targets. These companies, Patreon and the Star thing and GoFundMe and all these companies, they serve, the purpose they serve is to take money from one party and to transfer it to another party. The method they use to do that is not inherent in their software or their platform. They use places like PayPal. PayPal has come under pressure and told the Star site, the alternative to Patreon, we would really like it if you didn't use our service. I asked my wife, or my wife asked me, what does that mean? We would like it if you didn't use our service, but they didn't tell them that they couldn't use their service. I said, that means next week they're going to tell them that they can't use their service. That's what that means. We haven't received enough pressure yet to kick you off of our platform, but we're really close. It's the same thing with YouTube. This is where it's scary to me. YouTube kicks people off all the time because of ideological disagreements, and they classify it as a terms of service violation. And they're very close to getting to the point to where they say, if we don't like you, you don't have a home here. They don't like a certain brand of politics. They don't like the Second Amendment. They don't like smoking. They don't like a number of things. The days of all the people who do enjoy these things is coming to a close rapidly. I tell you all this just for information purposes. Some people might find it interesting. But if you have an hour and a half, go watch those videos. It's worth your time.